We are back with the third episode, or part, of making your own framework. This time, we are in server-side events. So last time we did client-side events, and we're basically going to do the same thing. Uh, we're just going to copy and paste this calling MP over, but we're going to have a few different ones. So for this, we're going to actually just copy and paste this. These are going to be callbacks as well, and then we're going to have just one for callback that is going to be a open bracket. And so we got functions. This request ID we're actually going to switch to commands because we are going to have commands. That's going to be open bracket as well. We're going to copy this down and it's going to be commands suggestions. And that is going to be it for the start of it. Now we're going to go right into it. So mp.functions.register server callback. That's going to be equal a function, which in here we're going to call a name, and we're going to get a callback from. So in here we're going to do mp.server callback. We're going to put name in here, so we're going to grab the name of the callback we're trying to grab, and then if it is not equal to nil, then my bad, if statement, or no, I'm looking at the other one. My bad, name equals callback, and then we're going to end this, and then for the next one is where we're going to do this. So functions is going to be trigger server callback, and that's going to equal function, and in here we're going to have name, request ID, source, callback, and then anything else that we need. And then we're going to have the if statement. So if mp.server callbacks name is not equal to nil, then we're going to do mp.server callbacks name, and then we're going to do source callback, and then anything else. And then we're going to end this all. And what this is doing is it's going to find the callback, and then it's going to call back to the correct source. And I'll zoom in after. I like coding and stuff's very easy to see. I can see everything. So at the end, I will zoom in and re-explain parts of the code that need to be re-explained. So next, we're going to do a get players function. So mp functions.get player equals function, and then we're going to do source, and we're going to do if mp.players source does not equal nil, then return mp.players name, or source, my bad, source, and then we're gonna end, and then we gotta get this next one. I don't necessarily need to put it in, and it's most likely gonna end up moving at the end of this, but we're gonna do mp functions .a admin. I guess we'll rename this a little different, so it's admin player, and this is equal to function, and we're gonna do the same thing with source here, and then we're gonna do if mp.a player, which I guess we could do a players. Let's do a players because there's gonna be multiple admins most likely. Does not equal nil, then we're gonna basically do the same thing, which is return, except we're gonna do a players in here, and then we're gonna end. So this is mainly for a admin perspective. I'll add a note admin, just so it helps us a little more. Now we're gonna get into registering a net event. So register net event, or whoops, my bad, the server register server event. Oh wait, why does this not seem right now? No, it is register net event. I'm just stupid for some reason. My bad. And this one's, we're gonna call this MP dash, yeah, MP dash base, and then server, and then update player. We're gonna add a function to this. So add event handler. In the same thing, we're just gonna copy this right here to remove that comma. We're gonna have function, and we're gonna end this bracket right now. So now we're gonna do local civ equals source local player equals mp dot functions dot get player, and then civ, and then if player, then player dot functions dot save. So what this is doing, when we're updating a player, this is going to be called when an update is needed, and just going to grab that player, and basically this function will eventually save the player to the database or to a table that they can grab client side. So now we're going to get into character, which is character SQL stuff. So this one's going to be a little quicker. I'm going to go a little quicker on this because I don't think I need to do much explaining. We're going to start off with a function creating a player, and we're going to grab source and data from this. We're going to capitalize data, and we're going to end right now. And inside of here, since we are going to use the export of getting MySQL, I will show you the one way, and then any other thing we do after this, I'm just going to basically copy and paste the export. So in here, we're going to do exports, and these brackets. Just Matty SQL, colon, execute. And now we're going to do insert into players, which is what the database is going to be called. And we're going to add a space, this identifier, comma, license. And we're grabbing license, grabbing license, which is going to be their FiveM license. And in here, we're going to add name, which isn't really needed, but we're going to add it anyways, cache, and we're going to add bank. Bank might end up being changed here at a time due to we might have multiple bank accounts, so this might just be accounts, and then it would have something in there for us. So after all this, I'm just gonna sort of copy and paste the rest. So we'll have end bracket, and then we'll have values here. So values is basically the same thing, but where we're grabbing this from. And now I'm gonna add a close bracket there, and then a close bracket here as well, and making sure all of these are good to go, which it does look like we have everything correct. And then we're just going to copy and paste the data into here. So this is eventually what it's going to look like. So identifier, we're going to grab from data.identifier. So we're passing in data. And from this data, we're going to grab identifier, license, name, cache, and bank. And then after we're all done with this, I'm actually going to print. I'm going to do a print here. And this will allow us to understand what's getting through and everything. So we'll print in here. We'll write MP, because that's MP dash base, because that's the base. Add a space. And then we'll do data dot name and then another bracket here, was created successfully. And that just allows us to know this, that it was created all good and correctly. And that's going to be posted in your console when it happens. So, and then after here, we're going to have a mp.functions one more time, which is going to be load player. And we're going to have a source off that, as well as the data that's getting passed through. Now, this one is a lot bigger, and let me check on the time. We're running 10 minutes. We're not even like halfway done. So this one I'm gonna sort of speed run a little bit more. mp.functions.loadPlayer. Obviously, it's gonna be a function, and we're gonna pass source. We're gonna get player data, so we're gonna pass p data, and we're gonna pass a CID, which is gonna be correlated to our what's it called? God, let me think. Correlated to our character selection. We're gonna have CIDs for which character ID. So 1, 2, 3, 4. How many depends on how many characters we have. Now I'm gonna copy the rest or part of it. So it's the same thing. Local source. We're grabbing source. We're grabbing the identifier here, and we're doing some exports. So it's selecting star from players, so it's selecting everything in the database from players where your identifier equals your identifier and CID. And then it goes into, let's see, going into players one more time, and just updating, making sure it's all correct. So after it is all correct, what we're gonna do is mp.player, my bad, mp.player, .load data, and we're going to pass through source, identifier, and CID. Let me lowercase this identifier real quick as well. And then we're going to do another citizen.wait just to make sure that everything is going to get loaded first before we start messing with stuff. So in here, we're going to have a local player after the wait, obviously, equals mp.functions. Get player, and we're going to pass source through this, and then we are going to trigger a client event in here, and it's going to be mp-set char data, which is setting your character's data. We're going to have to pass a source through this as we are in the server side. And what data are we going to pass through? That's going to be for the bracket, which I'm going to end up copying and pasting one more time. So we got identifier, CID, name, cache bank, and then we also have citizen ID, which I'm adding this because it's going to allow us to link an inventory and link everything to citizen ID, which would make it a lot more easier. After this is all done, we're going to trigger another client event, mp-base and player loaded. It's going to be called, and we're going to get source from that. We could print something here, but we're not going to. We're just going to trigger another client event, which is going to be mp dash actually, I'm not going to trigger that. We're going to actually come back to this. So we're going to comment this line out, come back to for UI, and then we're going to trigger. We're going to add another comment, trigger for admin, which we're going to come back to this as well. Because obviously we're not having admin built into the base, we're going to have that be separate. So that's going to be your load player. Now your commands are very similar, so I'm going to go through one of the commands. And then I'm going to skip the group command. I'm just going to sort of copy and paste that one in. Just because it's sort of less needed, but mp.functions.add command is going to equal function. And we're going to actually pass through a lot here. So we're going to pass through command, callback, suggestion, as well as args. And in here, we're going to have mp.commands. And that's going to equal command or not equal, but bracket command, and then equals open brackets. And now we're going to do mp dot commands. And we're basically just doing the same exact thing for next 3 lines, except we're going to have a dot here, dot cmd, which is equal to callback, and then dot args equals to args or -1. And we put -1 just to make sure it's equaling something. So then we're going to do if suggestion, which isn't really needed. I don't really think people use suggestions, but if not suggestions dot params or not a type of suggestions dot params equals table. Then what we're gonna do is suggestion dot params is going to equal just open brackets, and then we're gonna end this. We're gonna do another if statement. If not suggestions dot help or not type suggestions dot help equals a string value, then we're going to equal this back into open brackets, and we're just going to end that right there. And then we're going to run an mp.command suggestions, my bad, command, and then that's going to equal suggestion. And then we're going to end this, and then we're going to do register command, which is the native itself, and we're going to pass through command here, and then we're going to have function, and it's going to have source args. We're going to end this with a comment of false, and we're going to end this, and we're going to now type in the register command, which is going to be if brackets, set another bracket, # args, so number of arguments, less than or equal to mp.command dot arguments dot args and args equals mp dash commands dot args. That's going to be the first bracket, or mp dot commands dot arg equals -1. Then and only then we will do the callback. So callback, and what are we calling back? We're going to call back source args and your player, which is going to be mp.players, and we're going to do source. And then we could just end this. And now I'm just going to copy and paste we're going to copy and paste the group command, because it's basically the same thing, except obviously we're having it execute the ace group command for that. But other than that, basically the same thing. Okay, now we're going to go into user groups, which isn't really necessarily needed for this, but we're going to do it anyway. So mp.functions, and I'm going to call this setup admin, which equals to function, and we're going to grab a player and a group from this, and in here we're going to do local identifier equals player dot data dot identifier, and we're gonna do local player CID is equal to player dot data dot CID, and we're gonna do the same thing with a few exports here. So I'm just going to copy and paste the exports one more time and explain. So we're exporting delete ranking. So this is going to be for setting up an admin. It's not grabbing your user group at all. This is just setting up your admin. So it's deleting what is currently set on the player, which is usually just going to be user. And then we're going to have a separate table for admins, which is going to be called ranking, which grabs your user group and your identifier. So this is on every single player that will have admin here. So we're going to do a print here, and we're going to have a function group is what we're going to call it inside. And then we're going to have a couple spaces, and then we're going to do dot dot group, which we're grabbing group right here. It's getting passed through, so your group will get passed through, and it's going to print what group you are. And we're going to trigger a client event. That's going to be, we're actually going to write this one. So it's going to be mp admin dash admin, and then update group. And then what we're passing through is going to be player dot data dot player ID, as well as the group that is going to get passed through. And then we're just going to end that just like that. And that's going to be set up for admin. We're going to have to come back to this once we create mp.admin. But now we're going to do the loading of a player in command wise. So we're going to do mp dot, let me add mp dot functions dot build commands. And that's going to equal function. And that's going to grab source. And then we're going to end this. And we're just going to copy and paste this one more time, except we're going to use clear commands for this. Now in here, we're going to do local src equals source, just to make sure we have this and we're getting the source correctly. Now we're going to do 4k comma v in pairs, and then we're going to do jmp dot commands suggestion do trigger client event, and in this client event we're going to trigger it with chat colon add suggestion comma src comma the little brackets for the slash dot dot k comma v dot help comma v dot params. And then we're going to end, and we basically just do this exact same thing. So we can copy the paste this down in for clear commands, except for add suggestion, we're going to do remove suggestion. And we'll probably have to add this into the chat at a point, but it will work the same way. And that is actually going to be it for server-side events. I know this is a longer one. Keep in mind, I'm trying to get hopefully 2 of these videos out a week and possibly a third. Just not sure how that is going to work. But thanks for watching. Have a good one. Let me zoom in for you guys and explain a little bit very quickly. And also just so you guys could see it. So we got trigger callback, obviously does that, grabs the player. This will grab an admin player. What this is doing is updating the player's information database side. Creating a player, that's pretty obvious. Loading the player, also pretty obvious. Adding command, it's gonna grab so we've already done this in I believe core, yes. And this is how it works. We're just adding this event handler, and we just call this basically whenever we need to create a command. Group commands, same thing, works the same way. Set up admin, we talked about this. It's gonna set your group into a ranking and grab that for you when you load into the server. Build the commands and clear commands, very obvious as well. But thanks for watching. If you have any questions, hop in the Discord. I'm always in there.